Hey guys, what's going on? So for the longest time I've been really wanting to make a video for you guys about my vinyl collection because I have collected a mass amount of vinyls over the past year. So I guess that's what this video is about. So without further ado, here is what I have. So the first vinyl I have in my collection is Peter Frampton's Wind of Change, and I got this for about $10 at my local thrift store. Now, I initially got this album because I thought that this was a picture of Harry Styles on the back, but obviously it's not, so. But Peter Frampton is a little bit of an older artist. This album came out in 1972, which is about a year or younger than my dad. So this album is a little bit older than I am, but it's still a pretty great album. I've listened to it a few times, and it's not really my speed, but it's more of an acoustic album, which I really like. So if you guys like acoustic albums but like a little bit older stuff, Peter Frampton's Wind of Change is the one for you. So the next album in my collection is Cinema by Nazareth. Now this is the second album that I got. I got this the same day that I got the Peter Frampton album. And this one came out in 2011, although this is like 80s hair metal kind of sorta. I've honestly only listened to it like one time. I'm thinking about selling it because it's just not my speed. But it's going to be kind of hard to part with it because the vinyl is like this like translucent clear type color. But yeah, I really can't give you any feedback on this one because I've only listened to it one time, and I think I only listened to like 2-3 songs, and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. But I got this for about like 20 bucks at my local record store, so. The third album in my collection is Copasetic by Knuckle Puck. Now this album is literally one of my favorite albums in the entire world. This album literally has so much meaning for me, and it means a lot to me. Enough that I got a tattoo of, I don't know if you guys can really see it, but it's a tattoo of the little origami frog on the front. That's how much this album means to me. Luckily, I got to thank Knuckle Puck for making this album when I went to go see them at Warped Tour in Virginia Beach and in Columbia, Maryland. I relate to so many songs on this album, and it just holds a deep personal meaning for me, and this will always be one of my favorite albums. I got this one for I think maybe 20 bucks on Amazon. I was initially a little bit disappointed because I wanted the mint green color vinyl, but I got this like kind of like pastel orangish color. But it plays the same music, it does the same thing, it functions perfectly fine, so I'm not as disappointed. I think my favorite song off this album is between Pretense and Evergreen, because Evergreen I really relate to, so. The next album in my collection is Feel Your Feelings Fool by The Regrets. So I got this album for I think maybe 20-25 bucks when I went to go see them live this past May or June of this year. My favorite 3 songs off of it are between Hot, Lacy Lou, and probably What a Bitch. I really love that song so much. But this is just an overall great album, and I love The Regrets so much, and I cannot wait to see them again live. The next album in my collection is While I Stay Secluded EP by Knuckle Puck. Now this is the second Knuckle Puck album that I own, and I'm very proud to own it because this was the very last record that they had on tour when I went to go see them on Warped Tour. So I was super lucky to get it. Overall, really great album by a really great band. The next album in my collection is Living Proof by State Champs. Now I got this for I think about 20-25 bucks at their merch tent at Warped Tour. And I was really happy that I got it because I love State Champs a lot. I already own the CD version of it, and I own the digital version of it too, but now I have all 3 versions of this album. My 2 favorite songs off of this album is Our Time to Go and Mine is Gold. Our Time to Go is more of a ballad, and it definitely stands out from all the other songs off the album, and then Mine is Gold is a bop, just live. So because I was super fortunate enough to get it on Warped Tour, I got one of the tour exclusive vinyls, which is like this cool gradient of red, cream, and black. So that's pretty neat, and this is one of the most aesthetically pleasing vinyls that I own, so that's awesome. The next album in my collection is Village People Go West, and I got this for about I think 10 bucks at my local thrift store. Now I have been looking for a Village People vinyl everywhere. I looked at over like 10 thrift stores, couldn't find anything, and just when I was about to give up, I looked one more time and found it. Now I'm super sad that YMCA and Macho Man are not on this album, but In the Navy is, so I guess that's kind of a rebound maybe. Now I call this my miracle album because when I got it, I didn't think to look at the record before I took it home. And so when I got home, I opened up the record, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is like a ton of scratches on the disc. It literally looks like somebody took a key and just like tried to key the whole album, tried to like this up 100%. So I was super devastated when I got this home and I looked at it and it was in the condition that it is. I honestly didn't think it would play, but somehow a miracle came through and it plays like no skips, no nothing. It works perfectly fine, like nothing even ever happened. Yeah, this is a little bit of an older album, but it's still a really great album. The next album in my collection is 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars. Now, I'm not really a big pop music fan, but I am a huge fan of Bruno Mars. I'm sad I haven't seen him live yet, but this album is just like full of bangers and bops, and I just love this album a lot. I think the cutest part about this is the inside. It says thank you for buying my album, and then at the bottom it says you're welcome, which is like one of the cutest things ever because the font is all fancy and then the font color is gold. So I think that is literally one of the coolest things ever about this album. I would say my favorite song off of this album is probably Finesse, but the Cardi B remix is not on this album, which I'm like really disappointed about because I prefer the remix than the original. Out of all places, I got this album at Cracker Barrel for about 40 bucks, which is a little bit more expensive than what I usually pay for vinyls, but it was worth it because I love this album. Now, the next 3 albums I got for Christmas, and the first one that I got for Christmas is Knocked Loose's Laugh Tracks. Now, I just got into Knocked Loose this past year, and they're a little bit different from what I usually listen to, but at first, initially, I didn't really like them, but then I gave them a second listen, and I fell in love, especially because The Counting Worms was the very first song that I ever heard by Knocked Loose. Because of this album, my music taste has changed like by a landslide. I've started listening to a lot more metal music, and I know Knocked Loose is not metal, they're more like hardcore, but still, this is just a solid album through and through. It's just like back to back to back, just nothing but bops, honestly. So I think my favorite song off of this album is between Dead Ringer and Oblivion's Peak. I know they're like one of the most popular songs by Knocked Loose, but it's still a really, really great album. Oblivion's Peak has like a sick breakdown, honestly. It's a, like, I can't even explain how sick the breakdown is. I'm super proud of Knocked Loose for putting this out. I know this album came out 2 years ago, but just it's still a really great album. The next album I have in my collection is Rage Against the Machine's Evil Empire. This album is one of the best albums that I own. My favorite song off of this album probably has to be Be It Now, because I think that it is probably the glue that holds this album together, honestly. Now, although this is my favorite album by Rage Against the Machine, I think their self-titled is their best album they've put out, next to this album and then Renegades. And last but definitely not least in my album collection is Bambi by Hippocampus. Now, Hippocampus is more of like an indie band. If you're super into Remo Drive or Coin or Wallows, then this album is definitely for you. Now, compared to all their other albums, especially Landmark, Bambi is a lot more calmer than Landmark and a lot more calmer than, I think, their 2-song LP. I think it's an LP, EP, I don't know the difference, so forgive me if I'm wrong. Now, although my favorite song by Hippocampus called Baseball is not on this album, it is just a really great album in general because everything just flows together, especially the transition between Mistakes and Anxious. And speaking of Mistakes, I think Mistakes and Golden are my 2 favorite songs off of this album. And speaking of Golden, this vinyl is golden. But yeah, this is probably one of my favorite albums that I own next to Knuckle Puck's Copasetic and Knocked Loose's Laugh Tracks. That's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys want to follow me down in my socials down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.